Dissociative identity disorder, or multiple personality disorder, is likely a concept that remains utterly unfamiliar to the vast majority of people today. Yet, in the fields of psychology and medicine, particularly regarding neurological conditions, dissociative identity disorder, or DID, is something profoundly mysterious. Simply put, it's described as a condition where a single person harbors two or more distinct identities within themselves, each functioning as an independent entity. These identities take turns seizing control of the body, acting according to their own will, often without the primary identity's awareness. Dissociative identity disorder raises questions not only in medicine, but also in spirituality, ethics, and numerous other related dimensions. Due to its unpredictable danger, extreme severity, and uncontrollable nature, the ID is frequently linked to infamous criminals and serial killers. So, what exactly is dissociative identity disorder? Do we have a clear definition for it? And how has this condition given rise to bloodthirsty monsters that the primary identity cannot restrain? We'll address all these questions in this video. How dissociative identity disorder created twisted criminals. Of course, we must begin by defining what dissociative identity disorder truly is. Consider this example. You've just met a new friend at school. He speaks Spanish, loves painting, but seems a bit shy. The next day, you see him again and approach him to chat, only for him to react with complete surprise. It's as if he doesn't remember you at all, and his behavior makes you think he's acting like a 10-year-old child. You might assume it's just someone who looks similar, but on the third day, you encounter the same person again. This time, he speaks with a feminine voice, exhibits an unusually delicate demeanor, and naturally, still doesn't recognize you. It's all the same person, just displaying different identities. Dissociative identity disorder, or DID, is a mental health condition. It's characterized by the presence of at least two distinct and relatively enduring personalities within an individual. Symptoms of DID often include memory loss far beyond ordinary forgetfulness. In other words, these personalities typically have no recollection or awareness of what the others have done. Victims of DID frequently experience gaps in their memory, as they lack recollection of the times when another personality takes control. These personalities alternate in manifesting through the person's behavior, though which one emerges depends on the specific circumstances. Other issues commonly seen in those with DID include borderline personality disorder, PTSD, depression, substance abuse disorders, self-harm, and anxiety. Some experts believe the condition stems from childhood trauma, particularly deep psychological wounds sustained at a young age. In about 90% of cases, patients experienced abuse as children, while the remaining cases may be tied to war or other haunting events. Additionally, genetics is considered a contributing factor. Another theory suggests it could be a side effect of techniques used by certain therapists, especially those employing hypnosis. Treatments for DID typically involve supportive care and psychotherapy. DID remains a highly controversial condition in both psychiatry and the legal system. In court cases, it's rarely used successfully as a defense for psychiatric patients. It's unclear whether its rising prevalence stems from better societal awareness or cultural influences. For instance, the way media portrays the disorder. Most DID cases are diagnosed by a small group of clinicians, aligning with the hypothesis that the condition might sometimes be induced by therapists themselves. Typical symptoms of DID can vary across different regions of the world, depending on how the disorder is perceived and described. The definitions, manifestations, causes, and treatments we've just covered are the most basic insights into DID available online today. Unlike any other mental illness, dissociative identity disorder is truly terrifying. But just how terrifying is it? How does it control people, and why can't we resist it? If you want to grasp the horror of DID, go Google this movie right now. The film is called Split. First off, we're not getting paid by the filmmakers to promote it, especially since it's been out for quite a while. It's featured in today's video simply because we want to share an outstanding work that perfectly complements the topics we'll continue exploring. Split revolves around Kevin, a man with 23 distinct personalities coexisting within one body. Among them lurks a sinister 24th personality, a beastly entity seeking to dominate the others. After being controlled and abducting 3 teenage girls, Kevin uncovers a life or death struggle among the personalities within him. From there, a multifaceted portrait of human identity begins to unfold. The movie opens with a scene after a birthday party, where 3 girls, led by Casey, are kidnapped by Kevin. They'll attempt to escape as Kevin gradually loses his grip on sanity. Watch the film carefully and slowly to feel the fear emanating from each of this criminal's personalities, and to gain a deep understanding of how each identity takes control of Kevin's body. I bet this movie will have plenty of viewers rushing to change their pants every time a new personality emerges. The film is great, sure, but 24 personalities? That's probably just movie magic, right? I know some of you might think that, but the reality is quite the opposite. Kevin's character is modeled after a real-life, notorious and dangerously twisted criminal named Billy Milligan. So, who is Billy Milligan? Take a look. This is Billy. William Stanley Milligan was born in 1955 in Miami, the son of singer Dorothy Sands and comedian Johnny Morrison. But Billy's father, Morrison, struggled with depression and alcoholism, taking his own life when Billy was 14. Billy's mother moved the family back to Circleville in 1960. In 1963, she married Chalmer Milligan, and the family relocated to Lancaster. According to psychiatric reports based on Billy's memories, he lived with his stepfather, who, instead of unwinding with basketball like most Americans, entertained himself by tormenting his wife's child, Billy, through acts like burying him alive or hanging him. However, Chalmer Milligan denied all accusations leveled against him. Psychiatrists believe the childhood abuse left Billy's psyche fragile. From there, hatred began festering within him. In middle school, Billy was suspended for constantly being disoriented and wandering aimlessly around Lancaster. His family admitted him to a residential psychiatric hospital in Ohio, where he was diagnosed with dissociative disorder. After 3 months of treatment, the hospital discharged him due to disruptive behavior. Lancaster High School expelled him in 1972. Billy joined the Navy, but was discharged a month later, unable to adapt to military life. It seems the various personalities within him made it impossible to fit into any group setting. Billy began letting other personalities take over, becoming a henchman for a drug dealer and landing in jail multiple times for violent assaults and robberies. His life became so infamous that it was turned into a book titled The Minds of Billy Milligan. That's not all. Netflix also produced a documentary called The 24 Faces of Billy Milligan. Released in 2021, it revisits a case that once outraged the entire United States. The author of Billy's biography noted that he developed his first 3 personalities as early as age 5. These included an unnamed boy, Christine, and Sean. To differentiate the identities within one person, each is given a unique name, like a new individual. Billy's criminal saga arguably begins in 1975, when he was arrested for armed robbery and rape. Yet, he was released 2 years later. In October 1977, Billy was arrested again for raping 3 women at Ohio State University. Shockingly, one of the victims recounted that Billy was oddly friendly and behaved like a 3-year-old girl. While awaiting trial, Billy underwent rigorous psychological evaluations by Dr. Willis C. Driscoll. Initially diagnosed with schizophrenia, his symptoms displayed some highly unusual traits. After multiple assessments, Billy was confirmed to have multiple personality disorder. To the astonishment of security and investigators, Billy was found to have 10 distinct personalities during evaluations across various hospitals. Later, Dr. David Call identified 14 more, dubbed the undesirable or uncontrolled personalities. In total, this one man housed 24 different identities. They're incredibly complex, chaotic, and hard to explain, but we'll try to list them as comprehensively as possible in this video. As mentioned earlier, each personality is given a unique name for clarity. First, of course, is Billy Milligan, the primary identity. There's not much to say about this one, as it's essentially a normal personality. The most noteworthy aspects lie with the other identities. The second is Arthur, an educated and refined Englishman, a science and medicine expert specializing in hematology. Arthur is one of only 2 personalities able to classify others in the group as undesirable. He often takes control during moments requiring intellectual focus. Arthur shares a special bond with Christine, a 3-year-old dyslexic girl whom he taught to read and write. Christine has a brother, Christopher Naturally, another personality within the same body. Next is Dragan Vadiskovinic, the Keeper of Hate, who describes himself as Yugoslavian with a Slavic accent. He can speak and write Serbian, is exceptionally strong, emerges in dangerous situations, and can also identify undesirable personalities. Dragan was the culprit behind the 1975 robbery that led to Billy's arrest, as mentioned earlier. 2 other personalities, Alan and Tommy, are often confused due to their shared habits and love for art. But Alan is a con artist, while Tommy is simply a music enthusiast. Tommy plays the tenor saxophone, is an electronics expert, and a talented landscape painter. Besides Tommy, another skilled artist is Danny, though he's shy and timid, especially around men. This contrasts with Adelena, a lesbian who cooks, cleans, and writes poetry. Pay special attention to Adelena, she'll be crucial to the next part of our story. The 10 personalities just mentioned are relatively benign and pose little threat when in control, some even excelling as experts in science, medicine, or art. But if that were all, there'd be little to discuss. What follows are the suppressed personalities, those barred from control due to past mistakes or trouble caused to the primary identity. Known as the undesirables, we start with Phil, a Brooklyn-accented thug who's committed minor crimes. Then there's Kevin, the mastermind behind criminal schemes. Walter, an Australian with a keen sense of direction, was suppressed for killing a crow, while April harbors thoughts of murdering Billy's stepfather. Moving on, we have Samuel, a Jewish man and the only one who believes in God. Mark, a manual laborer, is rather dull and stares at walls when bored. Steve mimics others for comedy, much like Lee, who enjoys pranks and jokes. Other personalities include Jason, who relieves pressure for the group, but later caused too much trouble. Bobby dreams of grand adventures or solving global crises. Sean, a deaf 4-year-old, and finally, the 24th personality, known as the teacher. The teacher helps the others discover their talents and retains memories of their actions, but doesn't take control. The teacher was uncovered during a conversation with Dr. David Call. He's the fusion of all 23 personalities within Billy. Our task now is to follow the case and analyze why it sparked such nationwide outrage in America. The first rape occurred on October 14, 1977. According to the victim, Milligan held her at gunpoint, leading her from the school parking lot to a secluded forest. After committing the crime, Milligan took her money and forced her to write him a check. The second and third assaults followed on October 22nd and 26th. On October 27th, one victim identified him from a lineup of criminal photos. Milligan was charged with rape after a fingerprint on one victim's car matched his own. Columbus police tracked him down and arrested him at his home in Reynoldsburg. Elias Buxbaum, an Ohio police supervisor at the time, escorted Milligan to the station. He recalled, "I can't tell you what was happening, but it felt like I was talking to different people at different times." Doctors examining Milligan witnessed the same phenomenon Elias described. One of the 3 victims told investigators her assailant had a German accent, despite Milligan being born in Florida and raised in Circleville and Lancaster. Another victim said he was gentle at times, acting like a 3-year-old girl. This could very well have been Christine's identity. Billy's trial marked the first time in history a defendant was found not guilty due to insanity caused by multiple personality disorder, now known as dissociative identity disorder. During the trial, Billy's lawyer argued he committed the crimes while insane. The lawyer claimed the real Billy Milligan wasn't present during the offenses. Billy had been asleep most of the time, with the crimes carried out by Reagan and Adelena. This makes sense, as we previously noted Adelena is a lesbian personality. Thus, when she took control, she had the motive to commit rape against female victims. Ultimately, Billy became the first person acquitted due to DID. This outcome ignited a firestorm of debate among the public and scientists alike. The crimes he committed still ignite outrage in many people, especially since he has not had to pay for his inhumane actions merely because of an unverified personality disorder. The case's ambiguity shines through in Netflix's documentary, chronicling 8 chaotic years of Billy's life. It covers his time in prisons and psychiatric hospitals post-trial, up to his escape from Ohio Central Psychiatric Hospital on July 4, 1986. During that period, per Netflix's archives, Billy used the alias Christopher Coy and settled in Bellingham, Washington. When his roommate Michael Madden vanished in September 1986, Billy fled the state and was soon apprehended in Florida. No one was convicted in Madden's disappearance, but many of his belongings were found in Billy's apartment. Billy had also cashed checks using Madden's name. The case echoed his earlier theft patterns. After his arrest, he was returned to Ohio and detained again. In 1988, after an independent psychiatrist's evaluation concluded that Billy was not a danger to society, he was once again set free. After stints in Los Angeles and Las Vegas, Billy settled back in Columbus, Ohio, where his sister bought him a mobile home. He spent his remaining years painting there until his death from cancer in 2014 at age 59. What leaves audiences questioning is why there is no presence of the victims in Netflix's film. While Billy's family is given a detailed account of the pain this predator once endured, with the implicit assumption that it was the cause of his crimes, seemingly in an attempt to garner sympathy. In the end, justice wasn't served, and the victims' voices went unheard. Was there a cover-up for this criminal? In 1970s America, stories of multiple personality disorder surged, like Sybil, a girl with 16 personalities. She later admitted it was fabricated. Or take the 3 Faces of Eve. Billy Milligan's case was extraordinarily rare, but it was suspiciously timely, and after dodging prison, Billy repeatedly tangled with the law, escaping psychiatric wards, forging documents tied to disappearances, and being a murder suspect. His fame and media attention arguably helped him evade justice once more. In addition, some people expressed doubts about the evidence presented. The letter in Arabic, which Reagan's personality wrote to prove the identity within, was later proven to have been written by someone else. When an expert arrived to speak Serbo-Croatian, Billy's Yugoslav personality vanished instantly. Did Billy Milligan truly have DID? Did other personalities drive his crimes? Or was it all a staged act to escape the horrific crimes he committed? While the media cashed in on a juicy story, we can't be certain. Beliefs differ from person to person. But it must be acknowledged that Billy Milligan has greatly influenced the way dissociative identity disorder is portrayed today. People inadvertently assume DID breeds uncontrollable monsters or serial killers, as seen in films. Yet sometimes, those with DID are deeply pitiable victims who create alternate identities to protect themselves. You'll see this in the story of Jenny Haynes. From a young age, Jenny was repeatedly raped and abused by her own father, Richard Haynes. To survive that nightmare, her brain employed an extraordinary tactic, creating alternate personalities to shield her from the pain. Over years of enduring abuse, Jenny Haynes ultimately developed 2,500 distinct personalities to keep going. No, you didn't mishear. 2,500 different personalities. In a groundbreaking trial in March 2019, Jenny brought her alternate personalities to confront her monstrous father. Among them was Symphony, a 4-year-old girl. At the time, this was a global first in Australia. A DID patient had successfully presented their alternate identities in court. On September 6, 2019, Richard Haynes, then 74, was sentenced to 45 years in prison by a Sydney court. This effectively meant life imprisonment, as he's unlikely to survive long enough for release. The Haynes family moved from Bexley, London, to Australia in 1974. Jenny was just 4 when her father began abusing her. The abuse occurred almost daily, growing increasingly brutal. Jenny abandoned anonymity, realizing she was the victim, determined to make the perpetrator pay. She shared her thoughts candidly, leaving listeners horrified. My father calculated and planned the abuse. He did it deliberately for his own twisted satisfaction. He heard my cries and pleas, saw the agony and devastation he inflicted on me. But the next day, he did it again. Richard even brainwashed Jenny, claiming he could read her mind and threatening to kill her mother and siblings if she dared think of telling them. My inner world was completely invaded by my father. I didn't even feel safe in my own mind. I couldn't process what was happening. Her monstrous father restricted Jenny's school activities, forcing her to shrink herself and stay silent. If anyone noticed her existence, her father would punish her. The abuse persisted until Jenny was 11, when the family returned to England and her parents divorced in 1984. But it's certain that no one, not even her mother, knew about the hellish ordeal Jenny had endured. According to experts, Jenny's condition is dissociative identity disorder, born out of a survival strategy. When a child is abused in their own home, an environment that is supposed to be safe. Jenny first reported the abuse in 2009, but it took 15 investigations to secure a conviction against Richard Haynes. In 2017, Richard was extradited from England to Australia. Before that, he insisted his daughter's claims were lies and slander. Since learning the truth, Jenny's mother has staunchly supported her pursuit of justice. But for decades, Jenny struggled to find help, because many legal counselors and psychologists either didn't believe her story or found it so horrific that it exceeded their capacity to handle. Like Billy's case, verifying Jenny's multiple personalities posed similar challenges. In March 2019, Jenny was finally allowed to testify as Symphony and 5 other personalities. Each recounted the abuse from different perspectives. The trial proceeded with only a judge, as lawyers feared the case's brutality could traumatize a jury. Initially, Richard faced 367 charges of rape and sexual assault. Jenny's multiple personalities preserved most of her memories, unmarred by trauma-induced loss. This enabled her to provide detailed evidence of her father's crimes in court. The prosecutors also brought in numerous psychologists and experts on DID to provide evidence and validate Jenny's claims. On the second day, after Symphony's 2.5-hour testimony, Richard pleaded guilty to 25 charges. On September 6, 2019, he was sentenced to 45 years. Due to frail health, he'll serve at least 33 years, though bearing a heart scarred by lifelong trauma. Jenny pursued master's and doctoral degrees in law and philosophy, yet she struggles to find stable work. Currently, Jenny and her mother rely on welfare. Jenny says she and her 2,500 personalities have spent their lives in constant vigilance. Before the court delivered its verdict, Jenny Haynes also expressed a desire for her story to be widely shared. She hoped that her decade-long struggle for justice would blaze like a guiding torch, guiding other DID sufferers from abuse toward a righteous path, rather than developing harmful personalities that endanger society. In summary, dissociative identity disorder is a psychological condition far more complex than typical mental illnesses. It poses countless questions for society to unravel. If a single person harbors multiple personalities, how would the management of that individual's identity unfold? How can others know who they're truly speaking to? Imagine a malevolent personality using the host body to commit a crime, landing the host in prison while that personality vanishes. So, who's truly the one behind bars, the perpetrator of the crime, or the host, who remains oblivious to the actions taken while under control? Without clarity, how can we call it justice? Using DID as a means to evade accountability for crimes will undoubtedly become a vexing issue for law enforcement in the future. It poses an unresolved challenge for all involved parties, police, courts, lawyers, and victims alike. Perhaps we need more time to truly understand DID. But in the meantime, we must devise effective measures to curb its dangers to society. What are your thoughts and feelings about dissociative identity disorder? How should it be explained, and how should we confront it? Please leave your thoughts in the comments section below this video so we can discuss together, as this is a truly unique and fascinating topic. Thanks for your attention and for watching. That's all for today's video. Goodbye and see you in the next one. Wishing you all a joyful day with your families.